can I have a moment of transparency? I'm going to show you something right now here. If you follow me on YouTube, actually, it's not in this week's video. You start seeing it in the next week's videos. But there's a nice background. People have been looking at my background, being like, "Man, you got a nice place you're filming in." And I want to show you something right here. Right next to my desk is a sheet on a wall that looks like a nice apartment. Okay, that's my YouTube background. I got it for $20 from China. So the thing is, wh- if you see that if you see me on YouTube looking like I'm like looking all cool, this with this place that's always well lit, you know, I
That's-
paid for that to look doctored up.
Man, I tell you the truth. When I forgot who I used to watch videos of, and then one day that person was like, "I'll be in my basement of my house. I'll be in the basement making videos by myself." Right? You're like, right in front of the camera, 101, just like here, trying to do something good, right? And making the best with what I got, right? Welcome to Taking Off the Mask podcast. My name is Ashanti Branch, and I'm really glad you joined us. Today's conversation is with Mike Veny. Mike is a speaker and a author. The conversation jumps in really fast, and as you will hear in his introduction, he shares about some tough times he had in his life. And I share a story of a young man when I was a vice principal walking into my office and handing me a note that he wanted to hurt himself. And so this is a warning for those who may be around little children. There is a talk of suicide ideations. And if you yourself are having thoughts of suicide, this just want to prepare you for the conversation is going to discuss some of that. We do encourage you to make sure that if you are feeling like you need to talk to someone, that you do get support for that. And we in this conversation just have opportunity for two men to come together to talk about our truth and to recognize that we're not alone. And that sometimes in our goals and our dreams and big aspirations, when things don't go how we envision them, that we are just sometimes just trying to keep it going until we hit the goals. So we encourage you to share this with anybody who you feel could benefit from this conversation. If you want to make a mask, we invite you to go to our website, www.100kmasks.com, and be a part of this journey with us. Be a part of the Million Mask movement. Thank you for being here. We look forward to staying connected with you, and we hope that this podcast will serve you or those who you know. Please share it, please rate it, and we hope to see you again soon. Welcome to Taking Off the Mask, Mike.
Thank you for having me, and hello to your listeners and viewers out there.
Right on. Well, what we do, the way we do the show is not really an interview, but it's more of a conversation. And so maybe just like for those out there who are listening, tell them about yourself. What are you up to in the world? Like, how did you get into this work? And then you and I will begin we'll go from there.
Okay. Well, so much to start with. I mean, nowadays I'm a mental health speaker, author, and writer, and most of my work is actually in corporate America, where companies bring me in to talk about mental wellness. I speak about it sometimes on the news, and I am not a mental health professional by any means. I'm a person with lived experience. I've been struggling with mental health challenges for my entire life, and in fact, it's been something that's just been so intense that I just couldn't escape it, and no matter what, if you became friends with me, you were going to figure it out in some way, shape, or form that I had these struggles. And so as a child, I was hospitalized 3 times in a mental hospital for extended periods. I got expelled from 3 schools for behavior problems. I attempted to die by suicide at age 10. So I am very familiar with what it's like to struggle. And fast forward to today, my company basically focuses on this issue here, and not just from a mental health perspective, but even from a diversity and inclusion perspective, because they kind of go hand in hand. And so my company's mission, I say emotional wellness because it's a component of mental wellness, but I feel like the emotions are the most difficult thing to deal with. And so the mission is to support people in receiving the gift of emotional wellness. And I believe it's a gift that it's available to all of us, but you have to be open to receiving it and know how. And that's what I didn't know. I thought it was just something that was out there and some people had it and whatever. And that's basically what I'm doing. In the process of a move, sort of. You and I have had to try to catch each other, which I love the people in my life that we have to catch each other. Like so you are now one of my people, Ashanti.
Well, man, thank you for that intro, and I'm glad we did catch each other. First, we're on two different parts of the country, so we first had schedules that were matched on two different time zones. That's always fun. Imagine anybody out there who has had to have a Zoom meeting. If you didn't ask the person what time zone you're on, you probably were waiting a few hours ahead of or behind.
We've all been there.
Somebody's gonna get that email like I'm on here waiting for you, and you wake up, you're like, "What? Why are you waiting for me at 6 in the morning? Like I don't even wake up till 8." Like you're like, "Wow, that's what's happening." So thank you. I'm glad we got to have that experience. It will definitely add to the fruit of the unforgettableness. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
And I want to say thank you for your sharing your story. I think we talked to a couple of folks on here. There's a brother Wally from the 730 podcast. We're doing a lot of work around mental health, and he and I had a talk two times. But you know, first of all, thank you for sharing your story about your 10-year-old self, and I appreciate that. When I was a vice principal at a middle school, an 11-year-old boy walked in one day. I wasn't even planning to work that day. First of all, I was never going to be a teacher, so the fact that I was a principal means that something diverted my original plan. And he handed me this note, and you don't get as a vice principal, you don't get notes from middle schoolers too often. So I love getting notes. I'm opening the note, and he told me that he wanted to hurt himself. And
Mm.
I literally, all the training I had done, teaching for 10 years, administrator for 3, I didn't even know what to do. Like I didn't remember. I was trying to remember, where's the checklist, where's the where's the handbook. Well, okay, who do I call first? I literally was frozen. But I saw this boy standing in front of me. He was looking at the ground. I said, "Come here, come here, come here." I had him sit down, and I said, "Listen, today's gonna be a rough day, okay? But I got your back." Now I was packing up to leave. Like I wasn't. I only came in the morning to help with a tour, and my life changed. Like not only did my morning change, my plans change. It has changed my life, and I'm so thankful that my name was in the letter. My name was. It said, "Dear Mom, Mr. Branch, and family."
Mm.
And I had met this kid maybe 4 times. Like he was a good kid, never was in trouble. But I remember that. I'll never forget it. As I tell it right now, I see him. I see that room. I see the office, and I see me in my brain spinning around in circles because I didn't even know where to start. To what were the rules I was supposed to do? I know how to have empathy. I know how to care. But in schools, you're always trying to figure out how you not get sued, right? How do you not mess up? How do you not whatever with all the consequences of behavior? Like what am I supposed to do, and then what do I know to do? But I knew how to care, and so I started there, and then everything else kind of worked itself through that.
Wow. Well, I think that's it right there, though. You're right. We live in a world that, there's a lot of pressure to do it the right way, whatever it is. And let me just say this with schools and mental health, the procedure is always changing for how to do it. So I don't know if there's ever a right way, but, I commend you for caring and to anyone who's listening or watching. I think that's really important because if someone is struggling, the best thing you could actually do in that moment is be a good human. Everything else is going to work itself out. You'll figure that out. But being just a good human and being present with someone is so important.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think deep down, this is exactly what we're talking about, like in this work. Our podcast, this conversation, these masks we've been making have been a space for people just to go deeper than what we can see from them on the outside. Like
Absolutely.
all I know is what I let people see about me. And sometimes I'm not even sure. Like sometimes I'm like, I'm just operating in like I'm like, you go from this room to the next meeting, and you're like, okay, in this room I got to be in charge. In this room I'm learning. In this room I'm trying to get money. In this room I'm like, and I keep having to shift these masks, like, woo, woo, right? Like you're like, man. I'm like, when I get back to my office, I'm like, or I'm like off the calls, I'm like, okay, who am I right now? What am I supposed to be doing, right? Because I've had to switch from 3 different meetings to 3 different roles that I play, or lenses that I have to see from, and sometimes those can be just as confusing as if I literally had to put on a costume every time I went into a new place. You know, you're like, okay, I'm back in my office. Okay, I'm in charge here. Okay, and now I got to get my list of things to do here, right? Yeah. And so that's what this work is about. The Million Mask movement started with me with 8 boys at a school in Oakland, California, and these young men were not opening up. Like I knew they were going through stuff. Like as I was a dean that year, um, they were all going through something. In my office 101, we would go deep. What I knew from them in my office 101 is that they had feelings and they felt. But when they got in front of each other, man, what? I'm good. I'm good. I'm cool. I'm a 10. I'm a 10. I'm a 10. Everybody's a 10. Maybe one guy's a 9 over there, but there's a bunch of 10s in the room, right? And I'm like, dude, just 2 hours ago, what happened? Like, and in the circle, I can't tell their business. My job is to hold space. So I got it. I'm just, okay. If you're gonna lie, you're gonna lie. And I was trying to create the space where they felt comfortable, and they were, and when they came to film us for the documentary, I was like, man, they're gonna sit in here and lie to each other. We're gonna be just sitting in here having a bunch of. It was just I was feeling like it was. I had this worry, and I said, what if they don't have to talk about it? And the first time we did it was around. We don't talk about it, just write it. And so maybe you and I will do that together first. How about we start there?
I would love it.
So you have a piece of paper.
I got a piece of paper right here.
All right. And so I want you to split it in half, or just draw a line down the middle, and we're going to split it into the left and right side. And on the left side, I want you to just write front. And on the right side, I want you to write back. Okay. And so we're going to start on the front. So what I did in that room with these young men, and anyone out there who wants to make their mask, you can make your mask online at 100kmasks.com. So you can make a mask while Mike and I are making masks. You can go online and make your mask, 100kmasks.com. And you're going to do the same activity that we're doing just on a computer. So Mike, the first thing I said to them, I said, look, I actually, in the first version of this, I printed masks out for them. Like I just printed a mask and I said, so on the front, I want you to write some words. But since we don't have a mask printed, I want you just to draw a mask. Whatever you think a mask looks like, I want you to draw that. That's the first step.
Okay.
So go ahead and do that, Mike. On the front.
Front.
Yep.
Okay.
It says front. Draw a mask. Like whatever you think a mask looks like. So now I want you to think about the front of the mask. And this is 3 words or 3 phrases that are qualities of yourself that you gladly let the world see. So what are 3 words or 3 phrases that are qualities that you gladly let the world see? And write those somewhere on the left side. Don't show me yet. Don't show me yet. Just hold it. Okay. So the things that you gladly let the world see. Okay. Now I want you to look. Okay. So I'm going to look at the back side. Now the back is different than the front. When I tell people the back, so just take a breath. Take a breath. So we got all the things that we gladly let the world see, just 3 of them we share. Now we're going to talk about something different, because the back are the things that we normally don't let people see, that we normally don't talk about. And when I do a workshop, I tell people, look, you don't have to write the most tragic things, but I want you to think of a spectrum of things. So you have some things you don't talk about much because no one ever asks. Like it just never comes up. So that's why about some things that just, I don't talk about these because no one ever asks. It just never comes up. And then you may have the other extreme. I don't talk about these things because I just don't talk about it. Like, don't even bring it up because I'm going to leave the room, right? Like, so you got the spectrum of things. And I just want you to pick 3 that you feel comfortable writing on that paper, 3 things that you normally don't talk about. And that's on the back of the mask.
Woo.
Okay. Oh, man.
Never had an interview like this. This is a first. This is gonna get real. Oh,
Oh man. Well, so imagine I'm in this room with these high school students. I've never done the activity before, so I don't know what's going to happen. I'm really just hoping it's going to work. I'm hoping we get a little bit of something out of it. And literally, what we did is we took the pieces of paper, we balled them up. You don't have to ball yours up, but we balled them up and we threw them at each other. We were like hitting each other with the pieces of paper, right? It was a moment of like breaking the ice, right? And then I said, pick up one of the masks, and then we opened them. So you open, who knows who you're going to get, but you get somebody's in that room. Now they're all anonymous. They're all, they're all, we don't know whose is whose, but we know that this belongs to somebody in this room. And what they saw right then, what you see in the documentary, in that moment when they start looking at them, you just hear the ruffling of the papers, and you just see them and looking at them, and they're kind of like almost like not wanting to look at it. You're almost like I just learned some. Oh my goodness, like this is not my writing, but who's this, right?
Yeah.
Right? Imagine if you had a space that you knew that you weren't alone, like that the stuff that you were going through didn't have to get held and pretended like it wasn't happening. Because all these young men, when we check in, they're all tens, but now we're looking at the back of the mask and we're like, that's not 10 stuff, that's some other stuff. Why do we own? But the front is always a 10. And so I think that's what we experience in that work. So what we do on this conversation is like, and you started already taking off your mask, so in your intro. So I'm just kind of following along. But I want to say we give the guest opportunities to decide what goes first. Do you want to go first? You want me to go first?
I, I
You want to?
I want you to go first. I want to
Okay.
learn more about you, so this is going to help me.
Okay. All right. Well, so I'm gonna start with the front, and then I'll invite you to share your front, and then I'll
Okay.
do my back. Okay. So the front of my mask, I'm gonna show the picture here. This is what I wrote. Front. So I wrote funny, serious, and hardworking. And I think for me, I have I think serious and funny and hardworking, or I think I'm more serious than I am funny.
Okay.
Like I think I'm like I'm really like I have big goals and big dreams, right? So I really believe in having fun for like my team and for places I go and things I do. But I'm also like want to get stuff done, right? So it's kind of like, okay, the fun time is done, right? I'm not sure if I'm really good at weaving fun into the serious stuff. Like I do my best, right? But I'm more like, okay, here's serious time, and we're gonna carve out some time for some fun, right? And I think but I really think that those are some things that I started working on young. Like I was the oldest. I was at 7 years old. My uncle said, "You're the man of the house," and so my fun time in life actually got shortened really early because I had to be really serious and hardworking really early. At 7, I was helping take care of my siblings. He came over the day that right, a couple of days after my little brother had been born. So now it was me, my sister, my brother, and my uncle. I mean, he was my favorite. Like he would grab me and throw me in the air. I thought I was gonna hit the ceiling. I'm like, I'm about to die, and I would never hit the ceiling. I don't know how it happened, but I never hit the ceiling. But that day he said, I can't pick you up anymore. And my father died
Mm.
before I was born, so I didn't have a man in the house. It was just my mom and then me, right? So like when he came in the house, his energy, just that male presence of like somebody strong and somebody who was stronger. I mean, there was no other men in the house, right? So like, oh my god, he could pick me up, like, and I was always a husky kid, right? So he could pick me up with like no problem. Like my mom had a hard enough time hugging me. Like he would just throw me, and I'm like, oh my god, he's like so strong. But the serious had to start right there. I remember it very well, and so serious and hardworking are the things that are programmed in me. And
Mm.
fun is like fun. I don't know why we're funny first, because actually, I don't. It's not this order. It's not this order that I operate where fun is first. It's actually almost last. It's almost last as a more than anything. I make myself laugh enough that I don't carve out too much extra time for fun. So that's the front.
Wow. There's so much we have in common, by the way. I'm like you. Like, I like to have fun, but I like to get stuff done. And maybe I even sense that in our communication too. Like, there's something about me wanting to be on the show. You've got a team, I've got a team. And it was just kind of like, I like that. But you know what? We can argue that getting stuff done is fun for us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
and that's good to know. I like to know people like that. My front. Well, let me show you my mask here. That's my mask, and we're doing this right close to Halloween too. So this is I'm seeing a lot of them. So I wrote three things: joy, confidence, and calm. So like you, Ashanti, we are both smilers. We're these men that are sitting comfortably in ourselves, smiling, and when I show up in the world, I like to show joy, and that's something I think is a good spiritual intention that I have, because you are the energy that you bring into situations in life, right? And so I try to show joy, and that actually is real because it's me getting in touch with myself. Like I'm not just putting on a fake smile, like hi, I'm really showing joy, but that's what I'm limiting it to. Also, another one for me is confidence. I think this goes right with your seriousness. Actually, it's almost like
Yeah.
pretty much the same thing,
Yeah.
and that's the world we live in, especially being our own brands. You know, can have a whole episode about that.
Yeah, man.
There's that thing we have where we have to stay confident, and so I try to show that to the world, and
Yeah.
part of it
Yeah.
comes from growing up too, because especially being a person of color, there's something about the need to show yourself as strong
Yeah.
black man. And even though there isn't a real definition of what that means, it's something we all hear and a story we make up in our heads and carry with us. So that's there. And the other one is actually calm. And this one is something I've had to cultivate, especially as a person who lives with anxiety, is learning to get myself to a place of calm. And it's something that I have to work on every day. But, that's what I try to show to the world. So joy, confidence,
Yeah.
and calm.
Calm. Man, thank you for that. I wanna touch on one thing you said that was really powerful, and you said something about this idea that hard working and work is fun. And I wonder for me, I would say it's true for me. I wonder to know if it's true for you. Do you have a hard? I have a hard time um, because working hard is fun, and I sometimes can be considered a workaholic. That I don't unplug really well. Like
I was
you
just,
know,
I knew you were going there with that. I could just tell. And I was thinking in my head, I was like, you seem real cool. I could see us totally like hanging out, but you and I would be the worst on vacation. If they were like, the two of us just need to sit there and just chill. Yeah, you know, we can't be strategic. We can't work on our goals
no
and be
phone,
proactive.
no notifications, no. What am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
What
Well,
what?
one of the reasons that I have I talked to you about this move. It's actually a second home, and one of the things that's interesting about it is it's not in New York City. It's north of New York City, and it's a place of quiet and calm. I go out and there's nothing going on at night, so it's forcing me to do some of that unplugging. And I realize that sometimes I this is going to get really honest right now, but sometimes I have learned through therapy that when I'm saying, no, I need to keep going and going and going, that's a way of managing my anxiety. That's not hustle at all. That has nothing to do with hard work or determination. That is straight up managing my own. I don't want to sit with my feelings, but if I'm achieving, that makes me feel good. And in fact, looking at a cell phone, looking at a like on a social media post actually like gives you good chemicals in your brain. you know so, so
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that means if you are watching this or listening to this, please like it because Ashanti and I need those good chemicals.
It's called dopamine. It's called dopamine.
Yes, there's a name for it. The good chemicals, dopamine.
Imagine that, right? Imagine us as adults I'm glad you said that because I've experienced that. Like the billionaires who make these phones and these apps, they know what they're doing, right? They know that little heart at the bottom of Instagram does something. I didn't even know what the heart meant. The heart with the little red dot above it, had no idea what it meant until somebody told me. A teenager said, "Oh, why you haven't? Do you got a bunch of likes?" I'm like, "What does that mean? What are you talking about?" They're like, "Dude, see the heart right there?" I never known what it meant till then. Literally, the very next time I opened my phone, like I had never even looked for knowing. I didn't even know you could tell how many likes you had on something. The next time I opened my phone, I remember I was on BART. I was on the BART train, which is like Metro or whatever. Y'all call it subway there, right?
Yeah.
I was like, opened it up, and I'm like, there ain't no heart. There ain't no red. And I literally felt myself looking around like somebody somebody's messing with my stuff, you know? And I was like, oh my God, they got me. Like literally, without even being aware of what I was doing, I was like, what's up with nobody liking my stuff? And I'm like, oh, they got me. And I remember the next talk I did, I was actually heading to a talk, and I told those students, I'm gonna tell you something that just happened to me on the train on my way over here. Like that dopamine is so powerful, right? And we
Hmm.
see teenagers, what I see in a lot of my work is that they're hunting for dopamine hits. So every time their phone buzzes, they got to take it out and look at it. They got to take it out and grab it, right? And I'm not talking bad about phones. I like my phone. But a lot of our young people, they're using that as their validation for their worth and their validation for their importance in the world. And if something doesn't happen, I've heard a conversation with young men like, who I work with. Dude, why you don't like my thing? Why you didn't? And they're mad at each other for not click. I'm like, how do you even know who's liking your thing? Well, they know how to look and see who liked it, didn't like. Amazing, but that's the world we live in today, right? Where this thing continues, and they get smarter at these devices that then make your worth locked into this, right?
Yeah, no,
So,
no, absolutely. Actually, someone gave me some really good advice years ago. I was struggling with my mental health about 4 years ago, and it was actually right when my career was really starting to take off. And I was, of course, career's taken off, and I'm struggling. And to anyone listening who's been through that, that happens a lot to a lot of people. And for those of you aspiring to do things, that can be part of success too, believe it or not. But she said to me, she gave me some great advice. She said, Mike, you got to learn not to believe your own press.
hmm,
And I said, what does that mean? She goes,
hmm,
every day you get emails about Mike the speaker. I would go to different
hmm,
places and see my name on a billboard outside of a place, and you start to believe that that's you, and to those of you listening and watching, what Ashanti just said is so important because you're saying, like, you look at that social media, you look at your Instagram, you think that's you, and you don't even realize it, and when you don't get that like, it hits you harder than you can imagine because we associate that with self-worth. So this is a real big thing for the entire world right now, not even just young people, to realize that we have to think about where our self-worth is coming from.
ooh wee. Okay, you said, well, let's listen. We're gonna move into it then. So let's
Okay.
now
Uh-oh.
we're gonna head to the back. Then we head to the back because I think
Speaking
it's already
of.
speaking of. All right. So I mean, when you said self worth, it actually makes me think about like, okay, here we go. Here's the back. The back. Let me see, get the right angle. So the back. The first one is fear of failure. The second one is sadness about death, and the last one. This is the first time I've ever written this word. I wrote loneliness, and I think I wrote childhood trauma, and I think that it connects to that childhood trauma that you couldn't talk about. So you just kept it, and you felt like you just must deal with it alone. And the feeling of like loneliness around, okay, I want to tell, but I can't because I'm all of the things that I'm worried about. And even as an adult, right? Even as an adult, like all the things that I'm like, should I write them? I should just scratch that one out. I should just scratch that one out, right? I could, right? Like my fear of failure is huge in this, and it's like I don't want to be a failure. Like I don't want that things I have worked so hard to do that now that I want to get more real and more honest about where my life, then I worry about failing now. And then you're like, well, I just don't do it. Don't say anything. Don't deal with it. And those are the things that I find myself
Hmm.
keeping behind the mask. And now that I'm in this work and that I'm doing masks with people on a regular basis, mostly in a workshop, my mask is just as anonymous as anybody else's. But now I'm talking about my mask more, which I think is not only has been really helpful for myself, but also with sharing with others as well. So that's the back. The things I
Wow.
normally don't let people see.
You and I are so like, just, I'm having a moment, I'm having a moment. The back of your mask and the front could have been mine. Like, it could have been mine, just, in that mode. And I'll show you the back of my mask here. So it's fear, insecurity, and feeling worthless. I think it goes hand in hand with everything you wrote in a way.
Yeah.
For me, recently, I'm talking like the past week or two.
Okay.
I have come to identify that I carry more fear than I even admit to myself. Carry it around. Yeah, it's just it's like this undertow in a river that I don't even know that's there, but can just drag me down, you know. And so I'm just talking about it more.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not feeling the need to change it. And to those of you listening and watching too, it's interesting because oftentimes when we discover something, we think, okay, well, I need to change it, I need to work on it. And yes, but part of working on it, actually a good amount of working on it, is just being with it. It's just
Yeah.
being present with it, not judging it. It's not a
Yeah.
negative thing, it's just a thing, and so that's really something I had to learn. The other one is insecurity, which kind of goes with fear. I realize that oftentimes I walk around feeling like less of a person, less of a man. And it's not even comparing myself to others. It's just me by myself. Like I could be in the middle of nowhere feeling that way. And that is something that I've just had to learn to work with, and when I haven't been aware of it, it's led to me acting out to get that feeling of security in ways that I'm not proud of. And the other one that goes with that is feeling worthless, and we just
Mm,
talked about self-worth.
yeah.
And oh, if this episode goes up and it doesn't have a certain amount of likes, am I going to feel like less of a person? So
Mm, mm,
these are
mm.
things that I don't generally share. I mean, I have in my work been more like you with sharing them lately. So friends, family, the world kind of hears about it. You'll hear about it on my YouTube channel all the time. But still, it's tough. It's really tough.
Oh man! Every time you mention the likes and I'm trying to disassociate myself. 'Cause I'm trying to act like that doesn't bother me, right? Like I'm trying to be like, okay, it doesn't matter. Gary Vee said it doesn't matter. Forget it. Just document versus create. Don't worry. And then I'll see the post go up, and I'm like, no views. I didn't even know that. I didn't even know you can have words on the freaking count. I thought it was like at least just say zero. I said no views. I'm like, well, I better go watch it myself at least to get one in there. You know what I'm saying? Like what's going on, right? And then you're like, okay, how are we gonna? I think there's been that hunt, right? Like, okay, and how do I just not get sucked into that? Like that is it sucks me in, and I have to like reel myself back out. I'm like, get out of there. Get out of there.
Yeah.
You know why you were called to start these conversations. You know what value that they're having for you and for the people you talk to. And it's just follow the reason why. Because the why is clear, right? I can't control the results of how it lands everywhere it lands, but I'm clear that for the you and I, that we get to have this conversation. We get to have a talk. I get to learn more about you and you about me. And that's what it's about. The podcast was really about giving men a space to take off our masks and recognize that we're not alone. And I think that what I've seen in the work, even when I'm doing workshops in a room with people, that it's hard for sometimes for us to take off our masks. It's hard to get real. It's hard because our minds have told us that we have to keep this image up that is got it together.
Well, there's a survival reason in there too.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
in my book Transforming Stigma, I talk about how we're tribal people by nature, and you could actually see where this begins in kindergarten.
Yeah.
The way it plays out on the playground is like this: you and I are sitting in a group. We
Mm.
both have Nike sneakers on, but Joe's got Reeboks on, so we call Joe the weird one. And kids do that because they want to see who's in the group and who's not. That's just a human thing that's built into our DNA. And I think oftentimes we don't want to show certain things to the world because we feel the threat of being excommunicated from the group.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is played out in the workplace, as 2020 has happened because people are going on Zoom, like you and
Yeah.
I are,
That's right.
and certain times people don't want to show their camera so people don't see their background as to like where they live,
Oh.
or grateful that Zoom you can put your own background up so no one has to see that, and that's a real like real thing in the world. So I think it's important, to be aware of this. And what I have found for me is that being aware of this stuff doesn't make it worse, doesn't make it harder, doesn't expose me to any more threat. It allows me to take the power back.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that's something that I hope the people listening and watching will see, is that when you identify what's
Yeah.
behind the mask,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's not a bad thing. It
Right.
might be a little scary and uncomfortable, but it's
Yeah.
gonna give you your power back.
Man, well, thank you for that. And for those who want to make a mask, you can do that out there. One thing I want to ask you, and something when you just said about the Zoom, and I've seen with young men in our work, young men not only in our work but in our program. I think never before have we been asked to go to meetings and look at ourselves all day, right? Like
Yeah.
normally you go to a meeting, you sit there and you listen to whatever somebody's talking, but you're looking at everybody else or the back of people's heads or wherever, however you're just looking at others. Now we're like, oh, do I? And if you have if your self image, if your what you see is not something you like. Now I know when I was in middle school, I had a very poor self image, like what I thought I looked like, what I thought the cool kids looked like, and what I looked like, what I, what I judged myself was horrible. And I could never have been in middle school looking at myself all day because I would have been like, so what I see in my young men in our work, I see young men who will have their camera set up and they'll be right here. You get to see half, or I get the ones who do this. All you see is their eyes, or the ones who have the camera off, right? So you have all the variety of in between. But this idea, I'm gonna put the camera like at an angle where you just see the silhouette, like of me. I'm there, but I ain't gonna be having people, look. It's always very interesting, and um, you know, yeah. So that when you said that around the Zoom, and I think, and for adults, I'm talking about what I noticed with our young people. But I mean, I think when I go to meetings now, I'm like always like, okay. And I've created for you this nice rectangle right here, right? I've created for you a very well crafted rectangle, right?
Mhm.
And I had my one of our team members take a picture of me the other day, and I was gonna post that picture at night. And I got the phone, and I was like, okay, let me post this picture. And I looked at the picture, I'm like, that's not the picture I wanted. I wanted this picture that I had created. And she took a picture of my messy desk from over there.
Ah.
So it was a whole different image. But I laughed because I wasn't going to post it. I'm like, oh, I didn't post it still, but I'm going to post it one day. I don't know. But when I looked at the desk, I'm like, my desk is horrible. Why'd you get my whole desk? I just wanted to get what I had created because the image that we create sometimes.
Well, can I have a moment of transparency? I'm going to show you something right now here. If you follow me on YouTube, actually, it's not in this week's video. You start seeing it in the next week's videos. But there's a nice background. People have been looking at my background, being like, "Man, you got a nice place you're filming in." And I want to show you something right here. Right next to my desk is a sheet on a wall that looks like a nice apartment. Okay, that's my YouTube background. I got it for $20 from China. So the thing is, wh- if you see that on, if you see me on YouTube looking like I'm like looking all cool, this with this place that's always well lit, you know, I paid for that to look doctored up.
Man, well, I tell you the truth. When I forgot who I used to watch videos of, and then one day that person was like, "I'll be in my basement of my house. I'll be in the basement making videos by myself." Right? You're like, right, like right in front of the camera, 101, just like here, trying to do something good, right? And making the best with what I got, right? Making the best with what I got. And I think oftentimes when we see these influencers out there that are doing all this work, right? We get sucked in sometimes, and
Absolutely.
this idea is like, oh, I don't have that. I don't have a good light. I mean, Ryan and I, who's our production manager for the podcast, like I'm on him a lot because I'm like, dude, why does it look so grainy? Like I'm trying to like and have a vision, like I want it to be like, oh, did you see this other one I saw? Let me show you what I saw. I want it to look like that. And but I'm also like, well, this is what we got. We got to work with what we got right now, and as we get better and better, we can do better and better. But that's the journey of like trying to of getting sucked into like I think I heard a quote that says comparison is a thief of all happiness. And so if I spend my time always looking at how other people's podcasts are going and whatever, and I want to use inspiration, but I don't want to be getting to the place of comparing, right?
Hmm.
Like I can be inspired, but not be like, well, I don't have that, so therefore I am less than. And I think that's that self-worth piece that is so critical. And when I talk to young people about it or talk to teachers about it, I'm talking about it from research. I'm talking about it from experience, right? I'm talking about it from a place of maybe you have had this experience, right? I mean, I always tell them that I've had that experience, but I put a lot of examples out there that are like sometimes the ones that I was doing that morning, and
Yeah.
that's part of the journey.
Yeah, no, no, I hear you. Look, I'm just gonna tell everyone right now. I'm driving one of my vehicles. This is this used truck, and the tail lamp was falling off. So I took some tape. I had some tape in the basement, some packing tape, and I put it around it. And you know what? I'm proud of my truck with the packing tape on it, and no one's gonna mess with my truck either. You so I think it's important to understand, and for those people who are listening and watching, I think you bring up something very important, because when you're trying to do something in the world, yes, you need to look at what other people are doing. If you don't, that's bad. Like, you need to know what's going on out there, what other people are doing. Have a standard for yourself. But the challenge becomes when you make someone else's standard a part of your identity, or start putting your identity into that. I've got my own thing going. I love what you're doing, Ashanti. My thing does not need to look like yours. I love what you're doing. I can respect it. And trust me, there's plenty of things I'm noticing in how you're going about things where I'm like, this is amazing, actually. you know but if I get off this recording and start crying about it and feeling worthless, that's not good. At the same time, when you have that freedom of feeling comfortable within yourself, you are who you are, you can actually learn from others. And
Yeah.
that's a great place to be for people.
Yeah. I take a deep breath right there. Thank you. And maybe one of the things in this conversation, what we've been doing is just asking people just to be in a conversation. And so what I would say is there anything that you already said it to folks out there? And listen, it may feel tough to make that mask. It may be tough to like share that 6 words, or 3 words on the front, 3 words on the back. But maybe once you do it once, you begin to recognize that you're not the only one. That what those young men in that room figured out in that documentary, they realized I'm not alone. And so that's what we're inviting people. The goal of the campaign was to help people around the world. I started with 8 young men in a room at Oakland, California, and we have reached over 50,000 people, 50,000 masks. I have about 40,000 of them here in the office over here, and we have other ones online that we have been collecting from around the world. And what we see, that whether you're in Australia or you're in Colombia, South America, that people are dealing with similar stuff, different languages, different backgrounds, different communities, but dealing with similar stuff that we believe we can't talk about. And so, is there any? I want to have you first. Just, is there any last message you want to say to folks out there around the experience you had in creating your mask? And then I want to make sure we tell us how we can be in touch with you and follow you.
If you've listened or watched this recording, you can see how authentic this conversation has been between us. And I credit you, Ashanti, for giving me this mask exercise, because that's what happens. You see, we see this thing of taking off the mask as something we have to like surrender sometimes. Like, maybe I just give up and just like take it off. But here's what I want you all to understand. When you take it off, you actually start to embrace becoming just a human being. And as human beings, guess what? We're messy. We're sloppy. We screw things up. We say the wrong things. We're sometimes really mean. We're sometimes really horrible people.
Yeah.
But that's okay. That's part of the human experience. And when you actually embrace that about yourself, it will increase your happiness. It'll help you improve your success in all areas of life. But the key is allowing yourself to realize that living with that mask on isn't real.
Man, thank you for that. Thank you for that. One of the things that we tell young people and everyone who makes a mask, that it's that first opportunity for you, hopefully, if you've never experienced it before, that the next time you meet somebody that is share it with them, right? Because imagine if everybody you've been with has all been masking with you because you've been masking with them. And so how well do they really know? Maybe you just take a small step at a time. Don't jump in too deep with, because you've created the circle that you want to be around. I had one young man at a school say, I don't tell my friends what I'm going through because I want them to keep inviting me to stuff. I don't want to be the downer in the group. I'm like, but you said they're your friends. He's like, yeah, but that's just the way it is.
That's just
Imagine.
the way it is. I love that
That's
comment.
Yeah. So that's what we want to do is so all those around the world, around those who are listening, be a part of this journey, be a part of this movement. create your mask, tell somebody about it, and maybe you can have a deeper connection. I heard a quote that says, it's really hard to be fully loved unless you're fully known.
Mm,
And the question is, how many people fully know you? That's the question for today. So, Mike, thank you for being on the show today. Will you tell folks how they can follow you, how they can be in touch with you, what projects you're working on that we can support or whatever? Like, will you just let us know what's next for you?
sure, you can find me on my website, www.mikeveny.com. And the way you spell my last name is V like in Victor, E as in Edward, N as in Nancy, Y as in yellow. I'm currently working on a second, actually, no, a third book right now. I'm in the process of actually developing some continuing education courses on my website, and that's been really, really fun. And I just want to say this for the record, as I've been working on these videos, every single one of them, I'm like, oh my gosh, I screwed up this, I screwed up that. And you know what? I'm still hitting publish. Just wanted to share that.
Were you talking to Ryan? Were you talking to Ryan on this pre-show? Were you and Ryan talking smack? Because I got 100 videos on my phone that I refuse to share because of some reason or another, and I've been like talking about that. I've been talking about one day I'm going to share them, and they're still in the phone, right? But
I,
I'm glad
I,
you I'm glad you said that. Thank
I,
you.
I did speak with Ryan, but not about this. He's a great guy, by the way. I know you know that. But yes, and I invite you to reach out to me if I could ever be of help to you. If you just want to chat about mental health, or just let me know who you are. I love meeting people, and Ashanti, thank you. I hope you and I get to stay in touch.
I look forward to it, man. Thank you so much. Mike, thank you for being on the show today. Thank you for taking off your mask with me and this experience. And if you out there are interested in being a part of this process, um, you know, reach out to us. Let us know. And we'll be putting all of Mike's information in the show notes. So if you didn't catch it all, we will have it in the show notes for you. Thank you. And thank you for being a part of this journey.
Thank you.
If what you heard today you enjoyed, if you've listened to this and you found something inspiring, please like and subscribe to this podcast. That's the best way for someone to find this podcast, maybe like you did. Please tell someone about it. If you know, listen to some of our previous episodes, and if one of them rings out to you, please share it with somebody you know. We also invite people to join us in a face-to-face where they come together with another person to make a mask and talk about that mask together. There's short conversations, about 20, 30 minutes. So if that's something that's interesting to you, please send us a message, send us in the comments below, let us know that you're interested in that. And we look forward to you joining the movement of the Million Mask Movement. And check out our new shirt. I don't know if you can see it, but this is our new shirt, the Million Mask Movement. And so we'll have these soon available, but we look forward to you being a part of the movement and supporting our work. Please consider supporting the work that we do in Ever Forward and in the work that we do in the Million Mask Movement to let people around the world realize that they're not alone. Thank you.